Two girls walk quietly through a forest when something unexpected catches their eye. An airplane plummeting from the sky, moments away from a crash. Back in Japan, there exists a group of 7 young high school students whose abilities are so remarkable they're known throughout the world. Each one excels far beyond their years, their talents so extraordinary that people struggle to believe they're still teenagers. Because of this, they've earned the title the high school prodigies. The first among them is Ohoshi Ringo, a prodigy whose intelligence is centuries ahead of her time. Her inventions have changed the world and drawn the attention of global intelligence agencies. Next is Ichiju Aoi, a swordswoman of unparalleled skill, able to move through battlefields unharmed, even with bullets flying around her. Kanzaki Kani, the third member, is a medical genius. Her surgical expertise is so advanced, she's said to have rewritten what it means to be human. The fourth, Sanada Masato, is a financial powerhouse, a young economist who controls close to a third of the planet's monetary transactions. Then comes Prince Akatsuki, a master illusionist. From clairvoyance to levitation, he's pushed mystical performance to impossible heights. Sarutobi Shinobu, the sixth prodigy, is a journalist, but not just any journalist. She's descended from legendary ninjas with top-level espionage skills to match. Finally, there's Mikogami Tsukasa, the youngest prime minister in Japan's history. Elected through the country's first direct popular vote, his political mind is sharp beyond his years. One day, all 7 boarded the same plane headed back to Japan. But tragedy struck mid-flight. The aircraft suffered a critical engine failure and crash-landed in a world none of them recognized. Tsukasa was the first to wake. Disoriented and in pain, he found himself in a strange room. A girl with elf-like ears stood beside him, introducing herself gently. Her name was Lyrule. He remembered the plane, the others, and panic set in. Grabbing her by the shoulders, he demanded to know what had happened to his friends. Lyrule calmly assured him they were safe, resting just nearby. And she was right. The others were in the same room, recovering from the crash. Relieved, Tsukasa relaxed, introducing himself properly. Lyrule responded in kind, adding that in her village, it was custom to help anyone in need, especially the injured. Later, she brought him stew to help him regain his strength, but Tsukasa was still too weak to chew the meat. In an effort to help, Lyrule decided, rather awkwardly, to feed him mouth to mouth. It wasn't exactly what he expected, but rather than make her feel uncomfortable, he thanked her sincerely. A few moments later, another woman entered the room, this one with animal ears and a tail. Her name was Winona, and she looked far too young to be the mother of a teenage son. Tsukasa was surprised, but Winona laughed, happy at the compliment. When he asked about her tail, she allowed him to touch it, explaining that she's a Byuma, a race of beast folk common in this world. She noted that Tsukasa and the others were dressed oddly. Were they from another country? Tsukasa explained they were from Japan, a place neither woman had heard of. That's when he realized something strange. How were they all speaking Japanese? But Winona corrected him. She and Lyrule were speaking Altan, the local language. Somehow, Tsukasa and the others could understand it without realizing it. Still overwhelmed, Tsukasa asked to visit the crash site. On the way, Lyrule explained what had happened. 4 days ago, the villagers saw something huge fly across the sky, followed by an enormous crash. They rushed to the scene and found a wrecked metal bird, the plane, along with 7 unconscious strangers. When Tsukasa finally saw the wreckage, now burnt and twisted, he was stunned. There was no way anyone should have survived. It was nothing short of a miracle, and just as that realization sank in, a massive dragon soared overhead. Winona gazed up in awe. Tsukasa watched calmly and accepted the truth. They were no longer in their own world. Weeks passed. The villagers cared for the 7, helping them recover fully. In gratitude, the villagers threw a celebration. Mayor Ulga praised them warmly, and Masato joked that if anyone was shocked, it was the prodigies themselves, not the villagers. Kaina mentioned how they'd all gotten used to this new world. Well, all except Prince Akatsuki. He was still in denial, crouched alone in a corner, muttering to himself. Some Byuma children tried to mess with him, but Lyrule stepped in, scolding them. She explained to the others that Byuma were physically gifted, while the prodigies, Hyuma as they were called here, were rare. Occasionally, Hyuma could even use magic. Soon after, Winona brought over a basket of steamed potatoes with mayonnaise. Tsukasa had made it, and everyone loved it, especially the kids who had never enjoyed potatoes before. As they ate, Winona told an old legend, a tale of 7 heroes from another world who once saved this land from a dragon. Her son, Elch, didn't believe any of it. Slamming his cup on the table, he argued that the village couldn't afford to feed 7 extra mouths. Winona scolded him, but Elch made his point and left, telling the group to leave once they'd recovered. Still, Tsukasa thanked Winona for everything the village had done. Later that night, he gathered the other 6 prodigies and laid out a plan. They had 3 priorities. First, gather information. What was this country? What were its rules? How did magic work? Second, find a way home. The legend of the 7 heroes might be a clue. Third, help the village. Restoring its economy would be the best way to repay their kindness. The next morning, Ringo showed everyone that she had modified their phones to function in this world. She had even recovered a compact nuclear reactor from the crash, enough to power their tech for now. Even more impressive, she discovered bauxite nearby, which they could use to produce aluminum. But just as they began discussing logistics, they heard yelling from the village square. A group of soldiers had arrived, led by a sleazy general. Winona pleaded with him, explaining that the village had no resources left. The general didn't care. He reached for her inappropriately, and that's when Tsukasa stepped in. The general ordered an attack, but Aoi and Shinobu moved in instantly, taking down the soldiers with ease. Tsukasa pointed a sword at the general's throat and coldly warned him, "Leave now or suffer the consequences." The soldiers retreated, but Masato knew this wasn't over. They would likely report to their lord. Tsukasa agreed and said he had already prepared for that. Sure enough, pink and blue smoke filled the air. Floating in the sky was none other than Prince Akatsuki. The general shouted, "Why does a village like this have a mage?" Prince answered with a smirk, "Because I owe them my life, and to repay that debt, I'll take yours." Then, in true dramatic fashion, he appeared to decapitate himself. It was all part of his illusion magic. Terrified, the soldiers begged for their lives. Prince's floating head warned them. If they kept their word, they'd be spared. But if they told a single soul, they knew what would happen. Afterward, Tsukasa gathers his team and reminds them of their mission. With renewed motivation, everyone gets back to work. A few days later, Masato and Elch visit the Chillin Mega Merchant Company to buy supplies for the upcoming winter. But the owner, Jakoi, demands outrageous prices, leaving them no choice but to walk away. Furious, Masato declares he'll crush Jakoi's business within a week and teach him what real business looks like. Elch doubts it, but Masato simply tells him to watch. Nearby, a homeless girl named Rue overhears everything. Back in the village, Akatsuki entertains the children with magic tricks. Lerule thanks Tsukasa for all they've done. He tells her it's just their way of repaying the villagers' kindness. She expresses concern about their supplies, but Tsukasa reassures her. Masato has it covered. Soon, Winona arrives to complain about Jakoi's unfair prices. Once again, Tsukasa tells her to leave it to Masato. That evening, Masato secures a trading permit from the town mayor. Elch is stunned. It only took a day. Shinobu appears and casually reveals she helped with the paperwork, then vanishes again. As they plan their next steps, Rue approaches Masato and begs to be his apprentice. She wants to learn business and marketing. Masato sees potential in her and agrees. He gives her new clothes and heads to a meeting with local merchants. There, Masato offers them stalls in his new shopping plaza for a small rental fee. His terms are fair, and the merchants quickly agree. After they leave, Elch wonders if it's really okay to make money without doing any work. Masato just smiles and says, "Wait and see." The next day, Masato sets up a simple but functional shopping mall near the residential district. Merchants start moving in quickly. Masato tells Rue and Elch that this is just the beginning. The merchants need to succeed if the plan is going to work. At first, business is slow, but once word spreads about the low prices, the place is packed. Shinobu later reports that Jakoi's shady business is hurting locals. Masato tells her to start delivering affordable supplies to the village. That evening, the first shipment arrives and the villagers celebrate. Jakoi hears about the new shopping plaza but doesn't take it seriously yet. The following day, Masato unveils a new product, mayonnaise. It's an instant sensation and sells out within hours. Even the captain of the Sea Serpent merchant fleet stops by, but he's too late. Masato arranges a meeting, and by the next day, they strike a major business deal. That night, Elch and Rue sit atop a cart filled with gold coins. They've made a fortune in days. Shinobu returns with news. Jakoi is building a new market in Central Plaza to reclaim his customers. Meanwhile, Ringo shows Tsukasa her newest invention, aluminum aluminum alloy shovels. Tsukasa praises her work and promises to get her everything she needs. As they talk, snow begins to fall. Elsewhere, Jakoi finally realizes the threat. He orders his men to buy up all the merchant goods to choke Masato's supply. But Masato's already ahead of him. The merchants signed exclusive contracts and he eliminated the tariffs Jakoi relied on. Out of moves, Jakoi's business crumbles. With no other options, he bows to Masato. Surprisingly, Masato offers him a job instead of humiliating him. Jakoi, defeated, accepts. Later, Masato and Ru relax by the ocean. Elch asks why he didn't finish Jakoi off. Masato replies, "It's smarter to keep your enemies close." Suddenly, slave traders appear and recognize Ru. They demand Masato hand her over. Ru steps forward and begs for a chance to learn. She wants to earn enough money to buy her parents' freedom. Moved, Masato pays 100 times the asking price to buy her freedom. Ru bursts into tears, grateful to her mentor. Elsewhere, Tsukasa receives a call from Shinobu. She says Rosetta's new mall is thriving and shares insights on how to use this world's magic system to their advantage. She also reveals that any records of the 7 heroes have been wiped out. Tsukasa tells her to keep digging. Meanwhile, the villagers finish their first bathhouse. As they enjoy the warm water, someone rushes in with news. Hunters were attacked by a monster in the forest. The group quickly dresses and rushes to help. Masato and his apprentices join in. Luckily, Aoi, the samurai, slays the beast before more people get hurt. Mayor Olga is badly wounded, but Kaini revives him using magic, saving his life in front of a crowd. Back at the village, Enzagi, captain of Marcus Fendolf Knights, shows up and falsely accuses Masato of illegal profits. He's operating under royal orders, so the Prodigies are forced to let him act. Enzagi's men set fire to the village, with people still inside. Panic spreads, but Akatsuki uses illusion magic to safely evacuate everyone. Once the fire is out, they realize Lai Rule is missing. After searching the area, they confirm she was kidnapped in the chaos. Elch wants to strike back immediately, but Takasa warns that reckless action could bring more suffering. Winona insists they fight to protect their land. Tsukasa agrees and tells them to start developing weapons for war. Inside a castle in Zaki, Lerule is forced into a revealing outfit and presented to the king. When he touches her, a blast of magic knocks him away. Realizing she's a sorcerer, he orders Enzagi to tie her up. Outside, Tsukasa and the villagers reach the castle walls. Ringo fires a cannon and blasts a hole in the structure. Enzagi's men fire back, but their arrows bounce off the Prodigies' advanced shields. The villagers charge in. Tsukasa and Shinobu sneak through the corridors but are intercepted by Gale Stafford, an Imperial mage. Akatsuki creates a diversion with smoke bombs, shouting that they're poisonous, creating chaos. Shinobu dodges Gale's spells and knocks him out. But Enzagi arrives with more troops. As Shinobu fends them off, Tsukasa searches for Lerule. He finds her in the king's bedroom, but the king is waiting. He shoots Tsukasa and prepares to assault Lerule, but Tsukasa stands up. His bulletproof vest saved him. He fires rubber bullets and knocks the king out. He frees Lerule, but then her eyes glow blue. A strange voice speaks through her. It identifies Tsukasa and the others as the 7 Light Faith heroes and warns of a great dragon that could destroy the world. When the vision ends, Lerule collapses in Tsukasa's arms, crying. The villagers rejoice as their freedom is restored. Days later, the Prodigies unveil a van for public shows. During its debut, Akatsuki performs as a divine figure, and they hand out free mayonnaise. The crowd goes wild. Tsukasa and Masato talk about next steps. They agree to form a new alliance, the Church of 7 Lights. Meanwhile, Elch and Shinobu trek through snow to the Buckwalled Kingdom for intel. After another public event, more mayonnaise is passed out to the crowd. That night, Tsukasa secretly meets with Mayor Hyzerod in the royal castle. After successful talks, Hyzerod agrees to join the alliance while keeping his position as mayor. The next day, he officially announces that Dormont is now governed by the Church of 7 Lights. The guards don't resist. Some even seem relieved. That evening, the 7 Prodigies gather to plan their next move. Tsukasa tells the others to return to the village. He'll stay behind to oversee Dormont's transition. Keen, the group's medical genius, proposes building an antibiotic factory to help the people of this world. But to do so, he needs capital and manpower. Tsukasa agrees without hesitation and encourages the rest of the Prodigies to take on similar responsibilities. Later, Masato brings up a pressing issue: leadership for the newly formed alliance. He suggests it's time they choose someone to lead. Tsukasa admits he already has someone in mind. That evening, Tsukasa visits a local pub to meet Zez Bernard, the current captain of the Silver Knights. He offers Bernard the position, but Bernard refuses. He says he's already stepped down, and when Tsukasa presses him for a reason, Bernard confesses his fear. The Empire is bound to attack the Church of Seven Lights eventually, and he doesn't want to get caught in the middle. Disappointed but not discouraged, Tsukasa visits Bernard again the next day, this time at his home. He finds the knight playing with his daughter. Using the girl as a bridge, Tsukasa opens up. His heartfelt words about duty and the future slowly reach Bernard, and by the end of the conversation, the former captain agrees to lead the knights once more. That night, Tsukasa walks past a group of nobles who disapprove of the alliance. He ignores their glares and continues on his way. Elsewhere, Shinobu goes undercover at a tavern to gather intel. Disguised as a barmaid, she listens in on the soldiers' conversations. She learns about Duke Gustave, a brutal perfectionist and general of the Empire. Shinobu relays everything to Elch, and the two agree to travel to Gusta to investigate further. Back in Gusta, Duke Gustave executes one of his own men for failing to capture a rebel from the Church of Seven Lights. With cold fury, he vows to hunt down the rebels himself. Days pass. With alliances forming and plans in motion, Tsukasa begins rolling out political reforms. Late one night, a subordinate comments on how Tsukasa never seems to sleep. With a tired smile, Tsukasa insists he rests just fine. The next morning, Olga, now fully healed, thanks Keen for saving his life. He and Winona share a light-hearted moment with their daughter. Suddenly, Rue arrives at the village center, looking dehydrated and exhausted. When Winona asks why she hasn't eaten, Rue admits she's been studying non-stop. Her teacher assigned her multiplication tables, and she's determined to memorize them. The adults laugh and reassure her she's doing great. Meanwhile, Tsukasa and Masato join Ringo at a production facility where new tools and weapons are being developed. Tsukasa shares his plan to build an aerial defense system to counter any future Imperial attacks. Masato brings up the biggest threat: Heaven's Flame, the Emperor's legendary magic that's obliterated entire nations. Tsukasa falls silent. There's no clear way to defend against such a powerful spell. Lyrule shows up and nervously invites Tsukasa to lunch. He politely declines, saying he has a meeting. Crushed, Lyrule runs off in tears, assuming he hates her. Masato follows and explains the truth. Tsukasa doesn't dislike her. He's just been avoiding her out of guilt. Back when they first arrived, Tsukasa nearly abandoned her. The memory still haunts him. That night, Tsukasa finally finishes his work and tells his staff to get some rest. Alone in his room, he's on the verge of collapsing from exhaustion when Lyrule knocks on the door. He tries to send her away, but she pushes inside. Upset, she asks him directly why he's avoiding her. Tsukasa insists he doesn't hate her or anyone. Lyrule assures him she doesn't hate him either. With the tension in the room rising, Tsukasa opens up about his past. He reveals how his father was exposed for corruption, thanks to Tsukasa's own investigation. After the scandal, his mother disowned him. Even now, she wishes Tsukasa hadn't uncovered the truth, but Tsukasa stands by his decision. He wants to be the kind of politician who doesn't flinch in the face of wrongdoing. Moved by his honesty, Lyrule walks over and holds him. She promises she'll never hate him. Gently, Tsukasa asks if he can rest his head on her lap. He hasn't slept in days. She agrees. Unbeknownst to them, Ringo has been standing outside the door the whole time. Quietly heartbroken, she turns away and heads back to her lab. The next day, Akatsuki lounges in a bathhouse, stuck between two persistent girls. As usual, he tries to charm his way out, but it's no use. Nearby, Rue is still sulking about multiplication. Akatsuki, Aoi, and Keen cheer her up with quick math tips. By the time she leaves the bathhouse, she's energized and ready to learn. Later, Akatsuki quizzes her. Rue gets every answer right. With multiplication mastered, she now stares at 5 fish, completely stumped about how to divide them. Meanwhile, in the city of Gusta, Elch and Shinobu check into an inn. The locals offer them piles of rich food. Elch and Shinobu eat well, but something seems off. The innkeeper's daughter, Melinda, later warns them to leave quickly. Before they can ask questions, her mother drags her away. As soon as the coast is clear, Shinobu sobers up. She tells Elch something's wrong. The townspeople never touch their own food. Together, they sneak into the basement and discover a horrifying sight. Corpses of past travelers, mutilated and strung up. The villagers villagers are cannibals. An alarm blares outside. Jean de Leblanc, a silver knight from the Empire, arrives to inspect the townspeople. Everyone lines up. The night guard inspects them one by one, demanding spotless cleanliness. Melinda is pulled aside for a smudge on her dress. Jean orders her to be whipped. Shinobu watches from the window. Unable to take it, she tells Elch to report that she's been captured, then steps outside and surrenders herself in exchange for Melinda's safety. Jean accepts and throws her into a basement. Later that night, Jean visits Shinobu's cell and dismisses the guards. Meanwhile, Elch confronts Melinda's mother. He demands an explanation. Through tears, she tells the truth. Ever since Gustave imposed his always clean rule, farming became taboo. Without food, the villagers resorted to cannibalism to survive. Elch softens. He offers to help. Back at the basement, Jean reveals her real motive. She hates Gustave and wants Shinobu's help to bring him down. Shinobu agrees. At the capital, Duke Gustave proudly admires a new golden statue of the emperor. He demands more statues, despite the financial ruin. When his advisor warns him, Gustave brushes him off. He asks about their attack on Findal. The advisor says they plan to launch after winter. Furious, Gustave grabs a sacred weapon, the Spear of Fire, and decides to strike now. Far away, Leroux suddenly hears a voice, warning her that a great danger is coming for the Seven Light Heroes. Ringo's radar picks up something in the sky. It's fast, too fast. It's the Spear of Fire. Tsukasa orders countermeasures. Missiles are launched, but the spear dodges every shot. It lands directly in the village and transforms into a flaming night. The village erupts in chaos. Tsukasa quickly organizes a defense effort. Villagers rush to extinguish the fire while Bernard helps trapped nobles escape. Then, things get worse. Lance Spear begins releasing spirits, flaming humanoid creatures that ignite anything they touch. Tsukasa orders an evacuation. Lyrule arrives with critical intel. Destroy the lance and the curse will break. Tsukasa forms a plan, but the lance is surrounded by fire. Automated targeting is impossible. Someone will have to guide the missile manually. Aoi steps forward. She readies herself, drenched in water. As Ringo fires the missile, Aoi runs beside it, directing it through the blaze. Lance Spear launches counterattacks, but Aoi pushes through. She releases the missile. It hits the target. The lance is destroyed. Back at the castle, Gustave, linked to the weapon, feels the blow. His arms are severed. The trapped spirits are freed. They thank the Seven Light Heroes and vanish into the sky. After the battle, Tsukasa shares his hopes for the village with Lyrule. She asks to learn magic so she can support him. He agrees. The village celebrates their victory. Shinobu calls Tsukasa to brag about her new alliance with the Azure Brigade Resistance Force. He congratulates her and tells her to stay sharp. Masato arrives. He and Tsukasa discuss the next steps, including Lyrule's mysterious vision. Then Bernard appears, his forces fully trained and armed. Meanwhile, Gustave installs flaming prosthetic arms and commands Oscar to gather 10,000 troops. He's marching on Findolf now. Church spies cheer. Gustave's anger has made him reckless. It's the perfect time to strike back. Captain Margaret Arclight watches the snow-covered battlefield and shakes his head. The Duke's impulsiveness will be his downfall. With the front lines already secured, Bernard and his troops prepare for their next move. Acting under Tsukasa's strategic orders, Bernard instructs his men to fire on a few enemy units, just enough to strike fear into the heart of their rival, Marquis Arclight. The intimidation works. Arclight retreats, just as Tsukasa and Bernard had predicted. But Bernard doesn't stop there. He orders his forces to pursue the retreating army. Unbeknownst to him, or so Arclight thinks, this is exactly what Arclight wanted. He's laid a trap on the open plains near Buckwald, positioning his heavy cavalry to ambush Bernard's men as soon as they give chase. The trap is sprung, but to Arclight's shock, it's all part of Bernard and Tsukasa's bigger plan. Staying composed in the heat of battle, Bernard pulls out hand grenades and decimates the heavy cavalry, turning the tables in an instant. With his forces overwhelmed and his trap shattered, Arclight is forced to retreat for real, fleeing back to Buckwald. Elsewhere, Duke Gustave remains steadfast, rallying his troops one final time before sending them into battle. But while Gustave marches to war, the Azure Brigade launches their own counterattack. With perfect timing, they succeed in turning Gustave's remaining soldiers against him. Simultaneously, Ringo shifts her attention to Buckwald. Deploying a fleet of high-tech drones, she issues a stern ultimatum: surrender the city or face total annihilation. In the aftermath of battle, Gustav finds himself cornered inside his own castle. Jean and Shinobu approach the fortress and demand his surrender, but Gustav, too proud to yield, activates his fiery prosthetic arms and charges them head-on. The two dodge his furious attacks, buying time until Shinobu finally blinds him with a flash of light. They move in to strike. Gustav anticipates the move and raises his defenses, but Jean adjusts her angle and lands a precise blow to his blind spot, finally taking the tyrant down. Even in defeat, Gustav is defiant. With his last breath, he uses his own blood to activate a self-destruct spell. Luckily, Jean and Shinobu manage to escape just before the explosion. With Gustav's fall, peace slowly begins to return. Towns and villages start rebuilding, and in a significant political shift, Marquis Arclight publicly pledges allegiance to the Church of Seven Light after witnessing Tsukasa's tactical brilliance. A few days later, the women of the Church of Seven Light decide it's time to unwind. They gather for a luxurious massage session using exotic aroma oils crafted by imperial mages. When it's Ringo's turn for her neural massage, she gets bashful, embarrassed by her small frame. The other girls notice and try to comfort her by massaging her chest, gently encouraging her to feel more confident. Of course, Akatsuki crashes the session. Dressed in women's clothes and thoroughly enjoying the pampering, he eventually joins the rest of the team in reporting back to Tsukasa and Masato. The two men can't help but chuckle at the sight of Akatsuki in disguise. Once the laughter dies down, the group gathers to refocus. They discuss Leroux's magical training and ongoing efforts to become a full-fledged mage. Masato then voices his skepticism about the Azure Brigade's loyalty. He suspects their surrender might be more strategic than genuine, a way to avoid further conflict with the now powerful Church of Seven Light. Tsukasa agrees and brings up Count Conrad's odd behavior during their meeting. When asked about the golden statue of the Emperor, Conrad pretended not to know anything, an obvious lie that deepens their concerns. And then there's another looming question. Is Gustav really dead? For now, they don't have all the answers, but Tsukasa knows they must find a way to fully win over the Azure faction before the tide turns again. Before the conversation can continue, Keen, the group's doctor, interrupts. She's had enough of watching Tsukasa and Ringo work themselves to exhaustion. She orders both of them to take a proper rest. Tsukasa nods in agreement, and he asks Ringo to go out in town. Excited and flustered, Ringo rushes home and shares the news with her AI assistant, who cheers her on with giddy excitement. But romance is unfamiliar territory for Ringo. Not knowing what to do, she seeks advice. Her first stop is Aoi Ichijo, the samurai. Probably not the best choice. Aoi's advice involves grabbing Tsukasa by the balls and asserting dominance. Ringo quickly makes her exit. Next, she asks Keen. Unfortunately, the doctor's suggestions are equally dangerous. Manipulative tricks for commanding a man's attention. Ringo grows more nervous. Later that evening, she bumps into Shinobu at the bathhouse. When asked for advice, Shinobu offers something simple and effective. Just show up a little late. The next day, Ringo follows that advice. She arrives slightly late at the meeting spot, nervously hiding behind a post. Tsukasa finds her and waves her over. Blushing, she approaches him as nearby villagers recognize them both as prominent figures from the church. First, Tsukasa brings her to a clothing boutique. He helps her pick out new clothes, and once she's changed, Ringo lights up with joy. Tsukasa looks more handsome than ever. As they walk through town, women around them begin to take notice of Tsukasa. Ringo remembers Shinobu's second piece of advice. Hold his hand. She pretends to trip and falls right into his arms. Mission accomplished. Tsukasa catches her gently and smiles, then takes her to a quaint diner for lunch. During their meal, Ringo recalls the third tip: share an indirect kiss. She tries to swap their cups but ends up blushing too hard to follow through. Then, without warning, she slips into a memory. As a child, Ringo was the result of a genetic experiment conducted by her own mother. By the age of 2, she was solving advanced calculus. At 6, she was winning major science awards, so many that her mother grew envious and abandoned her. Alone and emotionally isolated, Ringo found comfort in one strange boy, Tsukasa. He used to bring her broken gadgets and ask for her help. Eventually, she grew tired of fixing everything for him and refused. But one day, she overheard him at a store, humbly telling the owner that he couldn't fix things on his own and how Ringo was a genius. Back in the present, Ringo wakes up on a bench by the ocean. Her head rests peacefully on Tsukasa's lap. She laughs laughs to herself, touched by the memory and the moment. Even if Tsukasa never reciprocates her feelings, she feels happy just to be close to him. She snaps a quick selfie with him in the background and smiles once more. Just being by his side is enough. After their emotional date, Ringo stands up, thanks Tsukasa, and prepares to go home. But before they leave, Tsukasa makes a request. He asks her to build something big. Ringo nods, and later that night she heads straight home to begin work on his secret project. As Ringo builds, Tsukasa reaches out to Shinobu for updates on the Azure Brigade. She reports that Count Conrad has left to pledge loyalty to the Empire. Tsukasa warns her to be cautious. He still suspects the brigade has hidden motives. The next day, tragedy strikes. A deadly infection called miasma spreads through the village. Keen's antibiotics should have cured it, but her supply is gone, and the next batch isn't ready yet. Then, Sorrentius, head of the medical guild from Gustav's nation, shows up with his lackeys. He offers to sell opium as a so-called cure and mocks the Church of Seven Light for failing to protect their people. Before a deal can be made, Keen arrives. She confronts Sorrentius and asks for time to develop a real treatment. He laughs at the idea and walks away. Keen immediately gets to work. She uses acupuncture to reduce the villagers' pain while working alongside Lyrule to create a synthetic magical antibiotic, sulfonamide. Within hours, she gathers all the ingredients she needs. Using coal, sulfuric acid, and ammonia water, yes, the kind that smells like pee, she successfully produces the pink crystals of sulfonamide. The medicine works. The villagers begin to recover, and Melinda's mother personally thanks the heroes of the church. Keen humbly credits the villagers who helped her. But Sorrentius isn't finished. He secretly plans to poison the new medicine to ruin Keen's reputation. What he doesn't know is she's been tracking him. Before he can act, Keen ambushes him and his men with nerve agents, paralyzing them. She forces Sorrentius to swear never to pull something like that again. Surprisingly, the next day, Sorrentius has a change of heart. He pledges to assist Keen with her research. Even his men, shocked by the turn of events, choose to follow his lead. Meanwhile, Count Conrad meets with General Nero to pledge allegiance to the Empire. Nero accepts, but with a warning: the Church of Seven Light must be destroyed. Conrad agrees. Nero then assigns him a masked mage as support. To everyone's shock, the masked mage forges a magical spear out of thin air. The weapon terrifies Conrad, who quickly realizes the danger of this alliance. Still, the mage is placed under his command with a single mission: wipe out the Knights of the Church of Seven Light. Back in Findolf, Ringo finishes building Tsukasa's newest weapon, a nuclear bomb. He inspects it, explains its role in the coming plan, then thanks her before letting her go. Elsewhere, Jeanne prays to the great statue of Count Bumhart, but her peace is interrupted. Knight Captain Razenact appears with guards and informs her of Conrad's betrayal. Jeanne senses a trap. She strikes first but is overpowered. Razenact's men prepare to violate her, but just before they can do the unthinkable, Shinobu arrives and saves Jeanne from what would have been the most humiliating moment of her life. The two women fight back and defeat Razenact. Afterward, Shinobu takes Jeanne underground to show her something, Conrad's biggest secret. Hidden in the shelter of the Azure Brigade is a golden statue of the Emperor. Realizing that Conrad has been lying to her, Jeanne breaks down. Shinobu comforts her and offers her protection under the Church of Seven Light, but there's no time to waste. Conrad is on his way, and he's bringing the masked mage. They hide and watch from a distance. What they witness is horrifying. The masked mage reveals his true identity, Gustav. He's alive, resurrected by a red gem embedded in his chest, replacing his heart. When he learns that Conrad destroyed the Emperor's statue, Gustav flies into a rage and attacks. Jeanne and Shinobu escape on horseback and head toward Findolf to warn the others. But they're already too late. Tsukasa, acting in advance, has already launched the nuclear bomb toward Gustav's location. As Gustav raves about his love for the Emperor, the nuclear bomb hits the Azure Brigade. Jeanne and Shinobu watch from a distance as the entire area is engulfed in a massive explosion. Even the villagers in Findolf can see the towering mushroom clouds rising in the distance. With the Azure Brigade gone, a new era begins. Ringo and Tsukasa reflect on what lies ahead. Tsukasa speaks of diplomacy, freedom, and responsibility. Ringo is moved. She thanks him for being the kind of leader who truly believes in a fair and just world. The next day, Tsukasa is called to deliver a speech to the entire village. Standing before the crowd, he speaks of their victory country and their new alliance with the four great northern kingdoms. He proposes a bold vision for the future, a republican nation where no one bows to nobles and every citizen has a voice. The crowd erupts in cheers. The Church of Seven Light is hailed as the founders of this new republic, but the celebration doesn't last. Gustav returns one final time, this time as a flaming, monstrous version of himself. Aoi and Shinobu rush in to destroy the red gem in his chest. Aoi lands a clean hit, cracking the gem, but her sword shatters and she's blasted away. Gustav charges at Tsukasa. With no time to think, Tsukasa pulls out a handgun and fires. One of the bullets hits the cracked gem and shatters it. As he begins to disintegrate, Gustav stares at Tsukasa and mutters his final words, "You're a weak man. One day you'll understand why I followed the Emperor." Then he vanishes for good. Far from Findolf, three powerful warrior women, Kaguya, Shura, and Hibari, sense the shift in the wind. Meanwhile, at the site of a nuclear bomb exploded, Nero thinking and smirking that a new world begins to take shape. The next morning, Tsukasa wakes up from a haunting dream. He's still shaken by Gustav's words. Despite all his achievements, he questions himself. He may not be the greatest prodigy, but he's determined to be a great leader. He rejoins his friends for breakfast, where Winona and her father proudly serve their homemade mayonnaise. Rue spreads some on toast, and Ringo and Lyrule sit on either side of Tsukasa, offering him food with a smile. Tsukasa relaxes, and for a moment, forgets all his worries. Over a simple breakfast, the leaders of the New World begin planning their next step. If you enjoyed this recap, leave a comment, like the video, and don't forget to share it with friends. Subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Until next time, stay safe and take care, senpai.